We're gonna try that again. Sorry, the audio was so bad in the previous recording, so uh, it's just this computer. I'm on the traveling computer visiting with some family, and unfortunately, I apologize for the bad audio today. Now, with that out of the way, I think it'll come as no surprise to learn that there's a competition happening. And in that competition, it's very exciting, especially for Vidyuu, where we like to make tutorials, we like to make assets, and that's what the competition's about. It's about making a template world and some assets and tutorials. And today, we are going to be sharing with you a couple of the assets that we're building for this template world. And let's go ahead and dive right in. A second to load up. Here we are. And so the first one we're going to be looking at today is the splash and swimming scripts. These are pretty nice. So the splash script is so simple. We're going to see it in literally seconds. It's just so quick. You've got two properties, your visual effect and sound effect. You've got your two events, enter and exit trigger. Player enters here. We then call splash by passing in the player parameter. Same thing in exit. Then the splash gets the foot position of the player. It then moves the visual effect and sound effect to that position, and then plays the audio gizmo and particle gizmo. It then also plays haptics on the right and left hands of the player. Some pretty straightforward stuff. If you're coming at this and saying, that's not straightforward, I have no idea what I'm looking at, this video is a breakdown video, which is meant to be viewed after some prior TypeScript practice and learnings. You can definitely, watch this and figure it out, but it's a breakdown. So now let's go ahead and take a look and see how that works in world simulation on. Play mode. Here we go. Let's go ahead and jump into this little lake. Not bad. You can see you get some nice little effects here. And you'll also notice that there's a swimming effect with some little ripples from time to time. And we're going to take a look at that script next. You can see that sound effects being on enter and exit is just phenomenal. I really like. It feels a lot more fun. I tried it on just enter, and it was not nearly as fun as enter and exit. Okay, next up, we're going to take a look at the following script, which is the swing manager. But before we do, I wanted to mention something that I think is relatively not obvious, and that is that I think this competition is all about making scripts that can be easily modified, easily learned from. So we're keeping the scripts that we're building for this template really easy to pick up and make your own. So if you wanted to swap out visual effects, sound effects, or if you wanted to add on to. And so some advanced challenges for any of you who've been following along in our Think Like a Programmer series that you might want to try is, in this case, we have only one visual effect and one sound effect. And we do that with both of these scripts. You'll see that. And we've actually got versions of these working in one of our other worlds that have a whole registration script where there are sound effects and visual effects that register themselves to a data file, and then they are called out of that data file randomly. And that's a lot more advanced. We've got utilities for that. We're going to actually include those utilities in this template when we launch it. So you'll have the random array utilities. So lots of good stuff there. But definitely a nice challenge task would be to take these scripts and support multiple sound effects, different sound effects. You could have surprising sound effects. So rather than a splash, you could use, I'm trying to think, say fish blob, something like that. So anyway, that is always fun and exciting, and I hope you'll take these and kind of expand upon them well beyond my greatest imagination. All right, moving on to our next script, we have the swimming manager. Now this one is attached to the, you'll see lake water has a sub-property called lake water surface. This gives us access to the position of the top of the lake water, and I think it's accurate. I'm now actually a little unsure because it's subgrouped, and sometimes the subgrouping doesn't get accurate positions, but I'm not entirely sure. So I think it's accurate. Let's actually test this. So here's where we calculate origin position. And if I just do ring effects, props. Oh no, I definitely know it's working because the ring effects is going to the right location. Never mind. Because when we play, you'll see it in a second. Sorry, I was worried because of the subgrouping. When you're inside of a group, you'll notice that the position value on over here is not actually relative to the world. So the outside most group is relative to the world, but the inside values are relative to the local space of the group. It's kind of confusing when I was worried that I was getting position of something inside of a group. Maybe it was the wrong position, but no, it is definitely the right position because as you'll see in a minute, we calculate the position to play the ring at. And so anyway, we have a value on the properties panel called radius. It's default to 25 because that lake is 50 meters wide. But if you have a larger body of water, you can increase it, or a smaller body of water, you can decrease it. The ring effects is that little splashy ring that you see. And then we have our origin position, which is a vector 3.0 by default. Then on start, we set it to be this entity position. Then we have our interval running at 150 milliseconds. This is a number I played with until I got it to feel what I felt was right. You can definitely play with it and try some other values, but this is definitely what I recommend. And so our loop is going to run every 150 milliseconds. We start by getting all the players in the world. We go through each of those players using a for each loop. We get the position of the player. We get the distance from that player to the origin position. And I want to try to visualize this, and I feel like using my hands will make this easier. So imagine you're a player above the water, and here's the water surface. And so if you take the player's position and subtract the origin position of the water, you're getting a value that is positive because you're subtracting. Let's start with the y value. Let's say the y value is 5, and this is at 2. Well, 5 minus 2 is 3, so that's saying it's 3 meters above the water. Now, if the player goes below the water, you take that 2, and now they're at 1. And 1 minus 2 is -1, so that's saying they're 1 meter below the water. So that's how this math works, but it does that to all x, y, and z values. And so we've got this distance vector that represents the distance to the player, and we can say the distance dot magnitude, which gets the value as meters. And so the length of that distance, if it's less than our radius, we know that the player is within the radius of our effect. So we want to affect players within 25 meters of the lake. And then we can check, is the y value of the player below, or the y value of the distance below 0, meaning they're below the surface of the water. So if they have a negative value, we know that we need to move them upwards or bob them up. And so this line next will require player settings, custom player movement to be set to true. So if we go to menu, player settings, make sure to set on custom player movement. That's what's going to make this work. And then next, we're going to go over here and see that what we're doing is setting the velocity, and then we create a new vector. We don't affect the x or z values, so those are set to 0. And then we have this little bit of math happening, and I just played with these numbers until it worked. So first thing you need to note is math.min 8 means that the value cannot be greater than 8. That makes it's kind of confusing, but min chooses the lowest value. And so it's saying 8 is the highest I want you to go. And so I've found in some other past builds that having this without a min could cause some crazy effects. Then you'll remember that the distance y is below the water, so it's negative. By adding a negative at the front of it, it makes it positive. Then we multiply that by 3.5, and this is just how much force we want to apply to the player. And I found this is the one that worked best. You could try different numbers to see if you get a slightly different effect that you like. And you might change this 3.5 and this 150 until you get something that might be slightly different. So a different type of bobbing effect, although that could create some motion sickness, so be careful. Next up, we have if math.random is less than 0.1, meaning 10% of the time we're going to play the ring effects. And so it clones the position of the player. It then adjusts the y value of that position to be the y position of the lake's surface. So it moves it from wherever the player's at up to the surface of the water. And then we move the ring effects into that position and play that as a particle gizmo. And that's the entire swing measure. Not too crazy, like pretty cool. All right, so now that you know how it works, let's see it in action one more time. If you have any questions about this, feel free to leave them in the comments. I don't believe we're going to put this into the asset library. Oh yeah, look at that. That was fun. So a little bob there. You can jump in. I love jumping in. I love that effect as you kind of like go in and out. Definitely could like have more sound effects and visual effects, but pretty good overall. Oh, so what I was saying is I don't know when we're going to put this in the public asset library. First of all, I need to read more of the rules, make sure I understand. You can only submit 10 assets, so I want to make sure we're submitting the 10 top assets. I don't know if you can unsubmit an asset once you've submitted it. I just have a little bit more research to do before we start putting these in the public asset library. For now, and I think it's a really good practice, is just to review that script, implement it yourself. Writing it out is going to build some muscle memory. You're going to like get to see it happen. You'll be able to maybe make some tweaks as you're working on it, choose different sound effects and visual effects to make it your own. Anyway, so for now, you'll be doing that. But in the future, you'll see that our template will be released. It's going to be called the Vidyuu Essentials template. So you'll see that in the assets library. It won't be in the assets library. It's going to be, there's a separate section. If you haven't seen it yet, I'll show you real quick. It's just launched, and we're going to probably publish fairly close to the end of the competition, as I intend to work on it for quite a while. But if you scroll down, there's Worlds to Remix. There it is. So that's where this will end up being when we're done. Okay, cool beans. Without further ado, I will let you get back to it. I have one more tutorial to record today, so expect to see that later today. And until then, adieu. Bye.